संसारदावानवलिदलोका त्राणाय कारुण्य गणगणत्वम्
संसारदावा नललिदलोका त्राणाय कारुण्य गणगणत्वम्
प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणर्णवस्य वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणर्णवस्य वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
महाप्रभो कीर्तन नित्य गीता वादित्रमाद्यान् मनसो रसेना
महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्य गीता वदित्रमाद्य मनसुरसेना
रोमाञ्चकाम्पश्रुतरङ्गबाजो वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
रोमाञ्चकम्पसुतरङ्गभजो वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यानाना शृङ्गारतान्मन्दिरमर्जनादा
श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यानाना शृङ्गारतन्मन्दिरमर्जनादो
युक्तस्य भक्तं च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
युक्तस्य भक्तं स नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादा स्वादनतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गान्
चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसाद सात्वनतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गान्
कृतैव तृप्तिं भजता सदैव वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
दैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
श्रीराधिका माधवयो अपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपानाम्ना
श्रीराधिका माधवयोऽपार माधुरलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना
प्रतीक्षणा स्वादनलोलोपास्य वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
प्रतीक्षणा स्वादनलोलोपास्य वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
निकुञ्जयुनो रतिकेलिसि जयालिभियुक्ते अपेक्षणीया
निकुञ्जयुनो रतिकेलिसि जयालिभियुक्ते अपेक्षणीया
तत्रादिदाक्षात् अतिवल्लभास्य वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
तत्र दिदाक्ष अतिवल्लभस्य Charanarvindam
Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam
Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam
Sakshat Bhakti Venda Samasta Shastre Uktastata Bhavyata Eva Sabdi
Sakshatari Vena Samasta Shashri Uktastathava Yataiva Sadhi
Kintu Prabhuja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam
Kintu Prabhuja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam
Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutopi
Yasha Prasada Bhagavad Prasada Yasha Prasada Nagati Kutapi
Dhyayan Suvasantasya Yasa Sri Sandhyam Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam
Jayastu Vantasa Yasashti Sanyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam
Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam
Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam
Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam
Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam
Namaho Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine
Namaho Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatari Shatarine
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe
Jaya Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava
जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रमा जय सुदर्शन
जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रमा जय सुदर्शन चक्र
जय सीताराम 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 जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान
जय सीताराम 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 जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान
जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह
जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह
जय गौरनिताय 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 जय गौरनिताय
जय गौरनिता 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 जय गौरनिता
जय प्रभुपदा 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 जय प्रभुपदा
जय प्रभुपदा 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 जय प्रभुपदा
जय गुरुदेवा 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 जय गुरुदेवा
जय गुरुदेवा 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 जय गुरुदेवा
निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
जय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल जय गौर हरि बोल जय विष्णुपाद परम सप्रभा जगच्चद्यस्तु तरसर शिष्यमाज इस्कॉन प्रतिष्ठा विविधि संस्थापकाचार्य वैष्णव शिरोमणि गौर प्रियजन कृष्ण प्रेम भक्ति दत्त पतित पावन हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अभचरण भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद जी की जय श्री गौर्य गुरु वर्गापति उद्धार की जय श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास गुण सत गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय नामाचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन के जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरंग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरनावतार की जय गौल केर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जग की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय बृहद निदांग ट्रांसडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय शिष्य राधा कृष्ण गोप राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय श्री पुरुष वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय डेलॉरशिप शिष्य राधा नील माधव की जय शिष्य मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय परम करुण शिष्य गौर निताय की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु श्रीमाता सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कर श्रृंगारे भगवान की जय गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय बोलो श्री मथुरा धारानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे all glories to somebody bodies all glories to somebody bodies all glories to somebody bodies all glories to Shri 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 Guru Shri Gauranga
Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Narsimha Parato Narsimha Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yeto Yeto Yamitato Narsimha
Jato Jato Yamitato Narsimha
Bahir Narsimha Hrudaye Narsimha
Bahir
Narsimha Hrudaye
Narsimha
Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye
Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye
Tava Karakamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Alita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Tava Karakamalavare Adbhuta Shringa Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Jayo Narsimhadev Jayo Narsimhadev Jayo Narsimhadev Jayo Narsimhadev
Jaya Nisinghadev Jaya Nisinghadev Nisinghadev Jaya Nisinghadev
Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
भक्ति विघ्न विनाशक नरसिंहदेव भगवान की भक्ति
Jai
शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की
Jai
गौर प्रेमानंदे
Hari Bol Shri Vrindai Tulasi Pai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradideve Satyavatai Namo Namaha वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादिदेवे सत्यवताय नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय के सब सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रादिदेवे सत्यवताय नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी। Krishna das kar ye namora
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi
Shri Radha Govinda prema sada navasi
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi
Shri Radha Govinda prema sada navasi
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade
Jane kani sapapane Brahma tare kanisha Tane tane pranashanti Pradakina pade pade
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade
Jane kani sapapane Brahma tare kanisha Tane tane pranashanti Pradakina pade pade
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade
Jane kani sapapane Brahma tare kanisha Tane tane pranashanti Pradakina pade pade
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavatyai Namo Namah Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavatai Namo Namah. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavatai Namo Namah. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you, his wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavi damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. So we have 10 offenses against the chanting with the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate a life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy name and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Mancha kalpatarubhyacha kripa sindhubhyevacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namo. Jayananta Kuti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikyastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanamajanam Bhavamada Vagnivapanam Shreyakari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paramvijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Ita Drishitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamya Jani Nanuraga Trinadapi Swinichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Amanadena Kitanya Sadari Nadhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vajagarishaka maye mama janmani janmanishari bhavata bhakti raitu ketvayi ainandatanu jakinkaram paritama visame bhavam buddho कृपया तव पाद पंकज स्थितधूलि सदृशं विचिन्तय नयनं गलोरश्रुधारय कारणं गदगदरुधय गिरा पुलकारिञ्चितं बपुकदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति जुगायितं निमिषेण चक्षुषा प्रवृषायितं शून्यायितं जगत् सर्वं गोविन्द विरहेण मे आश्लिष्टवापादरतं पिनष्टुमम् अदर्शनान् मन्महतं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पतु मत्प्राणतस्तु सेवनापर हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु श्री के हस्तकम की जय। नमो महावरणाय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नमने गौरत्विषे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवं गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यरिषतारिणे। Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana which cleanses the heart of the and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life for the period of birth and death. The Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large. It would express the rays the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully test the nectar for which all is anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, think of oneself the Lord and stroll in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the name of the Lord constantly. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want a number of followers. I only want your cause of divorce of service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please bring me out from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the yellow of the street. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and will the hairs of my body stand on end the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if sunders him roughly by his embrace, or makes him broken-hearted by not being present before me. He's completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vandana Mangala Charan Ki Jai. Om Gyanatim Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakchurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jyotaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharini Nivishesha Shunyavadi Patsatyarishatarine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Shiva Shabana Videvi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigana Naine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Prasidanta Dvantarine Nama Guru Kishoraya Saksha Viragya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Paramujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchit Anandanamine Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Bhava Vishwam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannataya Te Namaha Panchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavaranaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurjvise Namaha Panchatatatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavatara Bhaktakam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Jaitam Suratopango Mama Mandamatir Gati Matsarvasya Padambojo Radha Madanamono Divya Vindaranya Kalpadumadha Shmara Nagara Shingasanastu Shmara Dashra Govinda Devo Prestali Visheva Manu Shmarami Shmanra Sarasarambi Vamshivata Tatastita Karshan Venus Vanar Gopi Nata Shri Suna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhar Sri Gauru Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pastatya Satarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vaidikadadhar Shri Vasri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, Text number 9. Pravachamayam Sadayalur Ukto Muni Pulastyena Puranamadhyam Soham Tavaitat Katayami Vatsa Shadalava Lave Nityam Anurataya. So, this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, verse number 9. Provacha said, Mayam, unto me, Sa, he, Dayalu, kind-hearted, Ukta, aforementioned, Muni, sage, Pulastyena, by the sage Pulastya, Puranam, Adyam, the foremost of all Puranas, Saham, that also I, Tava, unto you, Etat, this, Katayami, shall speak, Vatsa, my dear son, Shraddha Lave, unto one who is faithful, Nityam, always, Anurataya, unto one who is a follower. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Parasara, as aforementioned,
being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam, or the Srimad Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I'm going to give a little bit of textual information of where we are in the Bhagavatam. So we're now in the third canto, chapter 8. And again, Maitreya Muni is instructing Vidura. So Maitreya Muni is a great sage, and Vidura is a great devotee. And then Vidura is asking a question. He says, he's asked in the previous chapter near the end. He said, I want to hear about the history and of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So then Vidura says, let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavata Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. So this chapter is going to explain the history of the Srimad Bhagavatam when it was first spoken. Now, usually we think that Vyasadeva wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, but actually it was existing before him, long, long before him. And this gives the history of it. That doesn't diminish the importance of Vyasadeva, but it just shows that the Bhagavatam was existing right from the beginning of time. The modern scholars, they say Bhagavatam was only spoken some hundreds of years ago, maybe, or 1,000 years ago, or 1,500 years ago. That's not true at all. Okay, so then Maitreya Muni says, some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sanat Kumara, the chief of the boy saints, so you have the four Kumaras, and Sanat Kumara is one of them, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you meaning Vidura, about the truths regarding Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from Lord Shankarsana, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. So here, now it's getting a little complicated. It's saying that basically you have to go back and understand the expansions of Krishna. So let me go through that first, and then you'll be able to understand with all these different names how they fit into this narrative. So Krishna is the origin of everything. And he says in Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, 8th verse, Aham sarvasya prabhava matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajanti mam buddhabhava samanvita. He says clearly, I am the source of everything material and spiritual. So let's deal with the spiritual. Everything begins from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His first expansion is Lord Balarama. And the only difference between Lord Balaram and Krishna is Lord Balaram is light-skinned and Krishna is dark-skinned. That's all. There's no other difference. They're the same person. Then, although they appear like two, but Balaram is what you call a absolute plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. Plenary means complete. So Balaram has all the powers that Krishna has, but there's one difference. He has a light complexion. That doesn't make him lesser than Krishna in any way. Okay, so but from Balaram comes the first Chaturvyuha. So the Chaturvyuha is Vasudeva, Sankar's son, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. Now these are now four-armed forms of the Lord. They are also plenary expansions coming from Balaram, who's coming from Krishna. But now you have these four expansions: Vasudeva, Sankar's son, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. And now, from Sankar's son, of the first Chaturvyuha, first expansion of these four-armed forms of the Lord. So from Sankar's son, you have Narayana that appears. And from Narayana, the second Chaturvyuha is expanded. Again, Vasudeva, Sankar's son, and Aniruddha and Pradyumna. And now from this second Sankar's son are expanded the Vishnu forms, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. And then from Kshirodakshaya Vishnu come all, and then from Mahavishnu, Sankara, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu appears, and he enters into all the universes that are emanating from the body of Mahavishnu. And he creates diversity in each universe. So we're talking about now millions and billions of expansions, right? And that's not all. Then comes Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who's the source of all avatars, like Shingadev, Matsya, Kurma, Vamana, all these different incarnations of the Supreme Personality Godhead that appear in the material world. So, and then here's Kshirodakshaya Vishnu is also the Paramatma in the heart of every living entity and in every atom of the universe. And there are billions of universes also. So now we're talking about astronomical number of expansions. Already the Narayana expansions in the spiritual world are a huge number. So we see it's almost impossible to imagine all this expansion of the Lord. Now there's further expansions of the Lord. All of us, the jivas, are separated expansions of the Lord. We're not on the level of the Vishnu expansions or Narayana or the Chaturvyuha or Balaram. We are part and parcel. It means that we're connected to Krishna. That connection can never be broken, but we are an individual also at the same time. So that's why we're part and parcel. Part means we're always connected to Krishna. Parcel means, but we maintain our individuality eternally. And we have our eternal soul is part and parcel of Krishna. Okay, and then the material nature is also an expansion of Krishna. That's his inferior spiritual energy. The jivas, you and me, we are the superior part of the superior spiritual energy, which is eternal, but has individuality also, but it is connected to Krishna. We can never lose that connection. And but the material energy is the separated energy of Krishna, and it's his inferior spiritual energy because sometimes it's manifest and sometimes it's not manifest. So this gives an idea of all these different expansions of the Lord. So here it's talking about some time ago being inquisitive to know Sanat Kumara, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you, meaning Vidura, about the truth regarding Vasudeva, the Supreme, from Lord Sankarsan, who is situated at the bottom of the universe. Now, this Lord Sankarsan is actually Anantadeva, or the gigantic snake that's a plenary expansion of Krishna. So, this gets a little complicated now, but it's very interesting. And so Prabhupada explains in the purport, this is in clarification of the statement that the Lord spoke directly on the Srimad Bhagavatam. When and unto whom the Bhagavatam was spoken is explained herewith. Questions similar to those put forward by Vidura were asked by great sages like Sanat Kumara and Lord Sankarsana, the plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva, answered them. So Vasudeva, Sankarsan, so you have Krishna. Vasudeva is Krishna in his four-armed form, and Sankarsan is Sheshanaga in the snake form, who has beautiful jewels, and each one of his jewels is shining and spreads light and energy everywhere. And then the Kumaras, the four saintly sons of Brahma, are asking questions like, explain to us this history of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so at that time, Lord Sankarsana was meditating upon his Supreme Lord, whom learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva, but for the sake of the advancement of the great learned sages, he slightly opened the lotus-like eyes and began to speak. Okay, so the sages from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges. The sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore the hair on their heads was wet. So this explains how great devotees can travel around the universe. The Ganges, when Vamanadev cracked the shell of the universe, and then a few drops of the eternal transcendental ocean in the spiritual world came into the material world, and it became the Ganges River. It's called the Mandakini in the heavenly planets, and when it comes down to earth, it's called Ganges. Now, this Ganges water is coming from the lotus feet of Krishna, because Vamanadev is an incarnation of Krishna, and his lotus foot cracked the universe and let in some of the water from the transcendental spiritual ocean, and that water became the Ganges River throughout the universe. And great sages, they can travel all over the universe by dipping into the Ganges, which runs throughout the whole universe, and they can travel millions of miles in minutes through this Ganges River. So this is all mysterious, and it says in the purport, the Ganges water flows directly from the lotus feet of Vishnu, and its course runs from the highest planet of the universe down to the lowest. The sages came down from the Satya Loka by taking advantage of the flowing water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its water. The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe, and great sages travel all over the universe via this sacred river. The statement that their hair was wet indicates that it was directly moistened by the water originating from the lotus feet of Vishnu, the Ganges. Whoever touches the water of the Ganges to his head surely touches the lotus feet of the Lord directly and can become free from all effects of sinful acts. Okay, so this is very interesting. This is explaining how great sages travel these billions of miles in the universe, and they can go from the highest planet down to the lowest planet in a very short time by dipping into the Ganges River that flows throughout the whole universe. It's a very interesting point. Okay, then it says, the four Kumaras headed by Sanat Kumar, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorified the Lord in rhythmic accents with selected words full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Sankarsana, with his thousands of raised hoods, began to radiate an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. Okay, so a lot of beautiful prayers are being said by the Kumaras, the four Kumaras. They're glorifying Lord Sankarsana, who is Sheshanaga, who has thousands of raised hoods, and he radiates an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. So the Lord is sometimes addressed as Uttama Sloka, which means one who is worshipped and with selected words by devotees. A profusion of such selected words comes from a devotee who is fully absorbed in affection and love for the devotional service of the Lord. So in other words, devotees, pure devotees, are always chanting the glories of the Lord, glorifying the Lord, explaining his transcendental qualities and pastimes and attributes. And because they have this love for Krishna, therefore, they can't stop talking about the Lord. And they use choice words and poetry glorifying the pastimes of the Lord. So, in other words, without the development of fine affection and love, one cannot offer prayers to the Lord very suitably. So then it says, Lord Sankarsana thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumara, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumara also, in his turn, when inquired of by Sankhya Yana Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarsana. So here we see Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken right from the beginning of time. It's not Vyasadeva who first spoke it. It was already existing way before Vyasadeva. And it is the Mahapurana. There are 108, there are 18 Puranas. So 6 are in the mode of goodness, 6 in the mode of passion, and 6 in the mode of ignorance. So, but the greatest of all the Puranas means histories, history of the universe. The greatest of all the Puranas is the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavat Purana. And it was spoken right from the beginning of time. So this is giving the history, and this is Canto 3, Chapter 8, leading up to today's verse, which is verse number 9. So this is explaining the history of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when it was first spoken, by whom, and to whom, and so forth. So in the purport to the Canto 3, Chapter 8, verse number 8, it says, this is the way of Parampara system. Although Sanat Kumara, the well-known great saintly Kumara, was in the perfect stage of life, still he heard the message of Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Sankarsana. Similarly, when he was questioned by Sakyayana Rishi, he spoke to him the same message he had heard from Lord Sankarsana. In other words, unless one hears from the proper authority, one cannot become a preacher. In devotional service, therefore, 2 items out of the 9, namely hearing and chanting, are the most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge. So yesterday at the end of the class, I was asked the question, how can you recognize a bona fide guru? And the answer was pretty simple. You start with the original guru, that's Krishna. And then whatever Krishna has said in Bhagavad Gita, you simply repeat it, and you become guru. You become bona fide guru. If you change even one thing, you're no longer guru. But if you repeat exactly what Krishna says. So therefore, whenever a question is asked, and let's say you ask a question, you have the right to know where in the Bhagavad Gita that question is answered. It could be in the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, whoever repeats correctly what Krishna has spoken in Bhagavad Gita and what the Acharyas have repeated, that and then what the present teachers or gurus repeat correctly, that is the principle of a guru. Simply repeats what Krishna has said without changing anything. Therefore, to become a bona fide preacher, you have to very carefully hear and repeat Bhagavad Gita. This hearing and repeating, or Shravanam Kirtanam, are the 2 most important points of the 9 points of devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, and then it says Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, and then Vandanam and Sakyam Atmanivedanam, right? Archanam Vandanam Sakyam Atmanivedanam. So these are 9 points of devotional service. But the first 2 are the most important, Shravanam, Kirtanam. And then if you hear and repeat, then you'll be able to remember. And then you serve the lotus feet of the Lord, and you engage in devotional, in worship of the deities and prayers, and develop friendship with the Lord, and you surrender completely to the Lord. So this is the process. This is the life of a devotee. These 9 principles, and you can attain perfection by any one of them, or all of them, or some of them. Okay, so therefore, we come to the, actually that was the 7th verse, right? And then the 8th verse, it says, the great sage Sankyayana was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master, Parasara, and Brihaspati both heard him. So here, Maitreya Rishi is giving a history of when the Bhagavatam was first spoken, and then the second time it was spoken, then the third time it's spoken, and then the 4th time it's spoken by Parasara Muni, who's the guru of Maitreya Rishi. Okay. So then we come to text number 9, which is the text that we're studying today. Canto 3, Chapter 8, text number 9. And it says, the great sage Parasara. Now, Parasara is the father of Vyasadeva. So now you get a certain idea of, Brahma has he's the original Prajapati, and then from Brahma comes other Prajapatis, such as we'll name them in a minute, and to Parasara Muni, and from Parasara Muni there's Vyasadeva. Okay, so the great sage Parasara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me, meaning Maitreya Muni, the foremost of the Puranas, the Srimad Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you is referring to Madhura, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. Well, we see one has to become a bona fide disciple in order to hear from a bona fide guru. And to become a bona fide disciple, you have to approach the guru with submissiveness, submission, and asking important questions and offering service. So because Vidura was approaching Maitreya Muni in that way, with submissiveness and asking important questions. He's asking, can you tell me the history of the Srimad Bhagavatam? And then offering devotional service to his guru. So now in the purport it says, the great sage of the name Pulastya is the father of all demoniac descendants. Okay, so Parasara Muni's father was killed by a demon. And he decided to kill all the demons. But when he started doing that, the leader of the demons, named Pulastya, came to see him. Pulastya is the father of all demoniac descendants. And he begged him, please don't do this. And he said, you want to maintain your purity as a devotee. So don't do this. So let me read some more of the purport. It says, once upon a time, Parasara began a sacrifice in which all the demons were to be burnt to death because his father had been killed and devoured by one of them. The great sage Vasistha Muni arrived at the sacrifice and requested Parasara to stop the deadly action, and because of Vasistha's position and respect in the community of sages, Parasara could not deny the request. So, who is Vasistha Muni? He's a direct son of Brahma. And he's the father, he was guru of also friend of Dasarath and guru of Ramachandra. Okay, so he comes on behalf of Pulastya, the father of all the demoniac descendants, and asks Parasara, look, don't do this. You're going to kill all the demons. It's not the right thing for you to do. So Parasara, having stopped the sacrifice, Pulastya, the father of the demons, appreciated his Brahminical temperament and gave the blessing that in the future he would be a great speaker on the Vedic literatures called the Puranas, the supplements of the Vedas. Parasara's action was appreciated by Pulastya because Parasara had forgiven the demons out of his Brahminical power of forgiveness. Parasara was able to demolish all the demons in the sacrifice, but he considered, demons are so made that they devour living creatures, men and animals. But why, on that account, should I withdraw my Brahminical qualification of forgiveness? Okay, so that's a good point. So he's saying, look, I know I have the power to kill all these demons, but then I would violate my Brahminical quality of forgiveness. So I'm not going to do it, right? So because Vasistha Muni asked him not to do it. He had great respect for him, and he was a superior to Parasara. And so he thought carefully about it, and he realized, yes, this will be a mistake. And he stopped the sacrifice. Okay.
But the question, Maharaj, is also, is it because he's Brahmana, he should forgive, whereas
Yes.
Kshatriya should not, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, even the Kshatriyas, sometimes they're requested to forgive also by superior authorities. Just like Devaki insisted that Arjuna not kill the son of Duryodhana, not son of Dronacharya. So, although Krishna had ordered him to do that, so they deferred to Draupadi. So there's an example again. Even sometimes the Kshatriyas are asked to forgive, but that not normally, but sometimes in an exceptional way. Okay, so Parasara was able to demolish all the demons in the sacrifice, but he considered demons are so made that they devour living creatures, men and animals. But why, on that account, should I withdraw my Brahminical qualification of forgiveness? As the great speaker of the Puranas, Parasara first of all spoke on the Srimad Bhagavata Purana, because it is the foremost of all the Puranas, meaning Srimad Bhagavatam. Maitreya Muni desired to narrate the same Bhagavatam he had heard from Parasara, and Vidura was qualified to hear it because of his faithfulness and his following the instructions received from superiors. So Srimad Bhagavatam was being narrated from time immemorial by the disciplic succession even before the time of Vyasadeva. The so-called historians calculate the Puranas to be only a few hundred years old, but factually the Puranas existed from time immemorial before all historical calculations by the mundaners and speculative philosophers. Wow, what a wonderful purport. So, here we're getting a lot of history, and we're hearing about the real origin of the Srimad Bhagavatam, or Bhagavad Purana, which is the supermost scripture about Krishna. And just like Krishna first spoke Bhagavad Gita, and also Srimad Bhagavatam has its history, and it was first spoken by Krishna also. Right? Then later on it was expanded by Sukadeva Goswami. Okay. All right, so there's another thing I want to talk about now. I'll stop there, and now we're going to go verse by verse again in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tomorrow will be text number 10 and 11. But I learned something new yesterday. And this is from a book that I wrote, Flaws in Modern Hinduism. So, in this Flaws in Modern Hinduism, I quote, I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm just going to, this is one thing I want to discuss. And it says, in the history of Brahma being mystified or confused, he stole all the calves and the cowherd boys from Krishna to try and stop Krishna's pastime, or at least test if Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So after stealing all the calves and the cowherd boys, he goes away, hides them in a cave, and comes back. But because there's relativity as well as far as time goes, he's absent for 1 year of the earth time, although for him it was only like a second or two. Right? So he comes back, and he's mystified, he's confused, because he sees that Krishna is still playing with the cowherd boys and the calves. And he knows he took them away and hid them, and came back right away. So here it says, I'm quoting from the 10th canto, 13th chapter, 57th verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahma was completely mystified. He could not understand what he was seeing, and then he was not even able to see. So, I mean, he's seeing the cowherd boys and the calves are still playing with Krishna, and he gets, it sort of blinds him, because you won't hear why in a minute. So, and then he's not able to see. So Lord Krishna, understanding Brahma's position. What is Brahma's position? He's completely confused, he's overwhelmed, he's even blinded. So then Krishna removed that Yogamaya covering. So Yogamaya is the internal energy of Krishna, one of his energies, and it's a spiritual energy that sometimes reveals Krishna and sometimes covers Krishna. But Yogamaya brings, it's an illusion, but it's a good illusion because it brings devotees closer to Krishna, as opposed to Mahamaya, who manifests illusory things that take people away from Krishna. Okay. But we're going to learn something very interesting now about Yogamaya and Mahamaya. So it says, Lord Krishna, understanding Brahma's position, then removed that Yogamaya covering. In this verse, Brahma is referred to as Iresha. Ira means Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Iresha is her husband, Lord Brahma. Brahma, therefore, is most intelligent. But even Brahma, the Lord of Saraswati, was bewildered about Krishna. Although he tried, he could not understand Lord Krishna. In the beginning, the boys, the calves, and Krishna himself had been covered by Yogamaya, which later displayed the second set of calves and boys who were Krishna's expansions, and which then displayed so many four-armed forms. So each one of the calves and cowherd boys that Brahma had taken away, and then a second batch of cowherd boys and calves replaced them. And now when Brahma comes back right away, he gets confused because he knows you just took him away, and now he's seeing him again. He doesn't realize that this is a second batch. And to confuse him even more, each one of the calves and each one of the cowherd boys transforms into a form of Lord Vishnu. And now Brahma is he's like overwhelmed. He's confused, and it's scary for him. Although he's Iresha, he's the father of Saraswati, the goddess of all knowledge. So that means that Brahma himself is most intelligent. But even Brahma, the Lord of Saraswati, was bewildered about Krishna. Although he tried, he could not understand Lord Krishna. In the beginning, the boys, the calves, and Krishna himself had been covered by Yogamaya, which later displayed the second set of calves and boys, who were Krishna's expansions, and which then displayed so many four-armed forms. Now, seeing Brahma's bewilderment, Lord Krishna caused the disappearance of that Yogamaya. One may think that the Maya taken away by Lord Krishna was Mahamaya, but Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura comments that it was Yogamaya, the potency by which Krishna is sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. The potency which covers the actual reality and displays something unreal is Mahamaya, but the potency by which the absolute truth, Krishna, is sometimes manifest and sometimes not is Yogamaya. Therefore, in this verse, the word Aja refers to Yogamaya. Aja means the transcendental energy that never takes birth. Okay, now this is a amazing point I never realized before. Although I wrote this, I forgot it. There is a major difference between Yogamaya and Mahamaya. Yogamaya will sometimes reveal Krishna and sometimes hide Krishna. Mahamaya covers reality and displays something unreal. It's Yogamaya is revealing Krishna, who is the absolute truth and is real, and sometimes hiding him. But Mahamaya covers reality and displays something unreal. So that this is a big difference between Mahamaya and Yogamaya. But the potency by which the absolute truth is sometimes manifest and sometimes not is Yogamaya. Therefore, in this verse, the word Aja refers to Yogamaya. And Aja in Sanskrit means the transcendental energy which never takes birth. In other words, it's eternal. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. But this was to catch up to the point where we left off before I left for India. And now, so tomorrow we'll start on Canto 3, Chapter 8, Verse 10. Are there any questions?
Maharaj, you said Mahamaya, I think it's clear because anything real masked by and then
And then she manifests something false.
false. So for Yogamaya to sometimes show Krishna and not to show, even
Yeah.
not to show, doesn't she have to create something false? Or
No, that's the whole point. No. What she created was not something false. She created expansions, or Krishna created expansions of himself in the form of calves and cowherd boys. So those calves and cowherd boys were real. Yeah.
they're expansions of Krishna.
Expansions of Krishna. They were not false. So,
So basically only Yogamaya only operates in the transcendental realm.
yes. Yeah. And Mahamaya covers reality and manifests something false. What's the covering? Well, right now, our soul is covered by this body. So the body is actually false. It's not, I mean, it's temporarily existing, but it's always changing. So it's false in that sense. Identifying with the body is a false thing. But if we identify with the soul, that's not false. But the soul right now is covered by this body. So most people just identify with the body. So that's Maya, Mahamaya. Yeah. And it takes time to understand all this because there's a difference between our body and our soul. Therefore, that's why it's so hard to understand Krishna, because he doesn't have a different body than his soul. His body and his soul are the same. So when we talk about Krishna, we project upon him our dualities. Right? where Krishna doesn't have that duality. He's Advaita. There's no difference in his body and his soul. Okay. Hari Bol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. No, Yoga Maya is a servant to Krishna. I'm sorry. Mahamaya is a servant to Krishna, or Durga. She's a servant to the Lord. Right? But she has a difficult job. She has to punish the jivas who are not Krishna conscious, to teach them that they should be Krishna conscious by giving them suffering. And she helps them go away from Krishna, and that just makes them suffer more. So eventually, when people say, well, why am I suffering? How can I stop this? Then they have a chance to become Krishna conscious. So that it's like being in a prison. There is the director of the prison, right? There's always a director of the prison. Well, Yogamaya is the director of the prison of the material world. And we are the prisoners. You, me, everyone, we're all prisoners. And our soul is covered by this material body, which is always changing. So that fools us, and we identify with the body, and because of that we suffer unnecessarily. When we meet bona fide gurus, they teach us what we're learning now. That there's a difference between the body and the soul, and we're not this body. Well, that's like the hardest thing for people to understand, because they're in a state of illusion. Maya has put us all into a state of illusion. But if we continue to hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam spoken correctly by bona fide devotees, we can eventually understand what the truth is and free ourselves of this unnecessary suffering of birth, death, old age, and disease. So hearing this on a regular basis is the most important thing. Hearing bona fide knowledge. And then we can become free of Maya's tricks. When we engage in sense gratification, our mind plays tricks on us. We begin to believe things that are not true. But if we give up sense gratification and follow the four regulative principles, then we can understand what the truth is and no longer make mistakes. So that's why this hearing process and repeating is very important, most important. You understand? Yeah. Okay. Hari Bol. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so are we ready? You want to chant? Yeah, go ahead.
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Bando mui savadhana mate.
Bando mui
savadhana mate. Jahara prasade bhaye e bhava toriya jaye.
Jahara प्रसादे भाई हे भवतोरिया जाए
कृष्ण प्राप्ति होए जहाँ होए ते
कृष्ण प्राप्ति हो
गुरु मुख पद्मा वाक्या चित्ते ते कोरिया क्या
गुरु मुक्त पद्म भया चित्ते ते कोरिया क्या
अरे ना कोरी हो माने आशा
अरन कोरिया माने आशा
श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति
श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति
जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्वे आशा
ये प्रसाद पूरे सर्वा सा
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिला जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
दिव्य ज्ञान दे प्रकाशितो
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेद गाय जहाँ राचरितो
वेद गाय जनर चरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अगम जनर बंधु
लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
लोकेनाथ लोकेर जीवाना
हाँ हाँ प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया
प्रभु पुरा जय जय मोरे पद दया
ए बेजास घोषुक त्रिभुवाना
सुचि भुवाना
प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
प्रभु पतित पवाना
जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा श्रील प्रभुपदा
प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्ता स्वामिन् इति नामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे
शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Namaste
Saraswati
Saraswati
Devi
Gauravani
Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi
Pasyatyadesatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Jaya Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajgachastatra Shishi Shimada's Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Sri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dhan Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dhan Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Bhavani Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great wonder. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. I only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and Master